Hi, I'm Eddie.
And I'm Megan.
And we are the hosts of Kill the Bottle podcast, where guess what we do? We kill bottles. We talk to guests. We talk about food, wine, travel, amazing guests like country singer Martina McBride.
Director Paul Feig.
Ooh, that's right, Paul Feig. Broken Shaker co-founder Gabe Horta.
Comedian Brad Williams.
Enrico Suave. Gerardo Mejia.
Oh, do not forget Craig Kilborn.
I can never forget Craig Kilborn because you have the biggest crush on Craig Kilborn, Megan. And if you want to find out how badly she has it, please listen to the episode of Craig Kilborn. We even have creators of TV shows like Dave Knoll, who created Chopped. One of my favorites.
Richard Blaze.
Hello,
The chef.
Chef
He's been on a
Blaze.
million shows.
And his wavy hair. So if you want all of these, come on over to Kill the Bottle podcast, rate, review, wherever you get your freshly squeezed podcast.
Hey everyone, this is DJ,
And this is Ish.
and this is Season 5 of Pero Let Me Tell You.
¿Estás listo para comenzar?
Estoy listo. Episode 223.
Yes, you are correct.
Hello everyone. Welcome to episode 223 of Pero Let Me Tell You, everyone.
Yay, you got it right. Off the bat.
So obviously, you know, we always thank you for tuning in. We always, as we always tell you, we always make it a point to produce new content every week, rain or shine. But definitely
This week-
we've had a lot of rain, so you know, we always try to keep it lively here. But obviously, with Hurricane Ian this week battling our home state of Florida, it's hard to
it was bad.
start off with anything else other than that. So
Yeah.
if you are listening to us, we figure that you're probably somewhere safe where you can listen to us. If you're listening to us and you went through the hurricane and maybe a lot of stuff went down, you know, we hope that for the next hour you
we
can
can
laugh and
Take your mind off of things a little bit.
Exactly. So yeah. So thank you for tuning in as always. Although some weeks it's definitely harder for us, depending on the topics, this is something that we definitely have to talk about. So,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it very easily could have hit us.
well, yeah.
Because, I mean, as well, when we posted, you know, it's like the thing changed direction, just drop of a hat.
And it's funny because I mean, obviously, I knew this hurricane was coming. I knew the hurricane did a lot of devastation to Cuba. But
right, but it always does devastation to Cuba because we're talking about...
Cuba doesn't have the infrastructure. Right. I knew that it was like a category 3. And then when I'm sure this happened to everybody, when I woke up on Wednesday, on Wednesday, I was like, oh my God. I woke up really early on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is overnight. It's turned into a monster.
Became a category 4, almost a 5.
Almost a 5. It was like
2 miles
like 4,
shy.
borderline 5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but this last night was a category 3, which a category 3 is nothing to not be worried about.
But for Floridians,
But for the Floridians,
a category
okay.
3 is...
It's category 3.
We'll,
it's
we'll
like,
see what happens.
Las
Right.
matas se van a caer.
Right,
you know,
right,
but
right,
usually with a category 3, there's not catastrophic
Right.
damage.
Once it hits a 4 is when we really start to worry.
And then I'm like, oh my God, this is really serious.
This is really happening.
It's really happening, and it's really serious. And you know, I think that if you live in South Florida, when John Morales tells you to buckle up, it's not gonna be pretty. That man is an omen.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, when
Because
this guy Jim, what is it, Jim Calafiore también from the weather, like when these guys show up,
Yes.
yeah, things are about to get.
No, because the thing about John Morales is that, you know, John Morales is sort of, I guess you would say, legendary in South Florida.
He's the modern Brian Norcross, if you will.
Yeah, and he really knows I mean, he is an actual meteorologist.
Yes,
like he legit
Studies this,
He
yeah.
studied this, and like he really knows this. And I think that he always does a really good job of like telling people not to panic. Like when
Right.
there's a storm coming, like, okay, I think it's not gonna hit us directly.
Right.
I think that like
He keeps it very informative.
very informed, but he always like puts a lot of rumors to rest, right?
Yeah.
You know, don't panic yet. You know,
Right,
we're
right.
n-
We still
you
don't know.
We still
We
don't
still-
know, but don't go crazy. But
Right.
like he
Be
was
prepared, but right.
But he was with this storm. He's like, holy shit.
Yeah. Look, it's Mother Nature. I mean, you can prepare, and that's what we all try to do. But at the end of the day, you don't know.
You don't know.
Mother Nature's going to do what she wants.
You don't know. And I mean, look, I think that when you live in a place like Florida, you know that this is just something that's going to happen, right? And I think that as like long life or native Floridians, a hurricane or even not a native Floridian, somebody who's lived here a while, hurricanes are just a part of life. There's something they're going to happen. And when I mean hurricane, I don't mean even just the actual storm. I mean
Hurricane season.
Hurricane season. Everything that comes with hurricane season. Like, viene el huracán, ya se llenó BJ's, ya
Right.
el Publix se acabó todo, la comida. Like,
And it all
that-
starts with when the maps are available at the local grocery stores.
Yes, the craziness that when there's a hurricane coming over, people lose their minds,
Yeah.
and I'm like, but what? Like, and it's funny because like I think it's one of those like domino effects because I usually keep very calm in hurricane preparing for a hurricane. When we are in threat of getting a hurricane, but then I'm like the day before I'm like, okay, everybody's like putting up stuff and buying stuff. Like I think I should buy stuff.
Right,
Because
like, am I
then
not prepared enough?
Yeah, then because I'm gonna run out of it. They're gonna run out of it.
And what am I going to do afterwards? Because
Right. So, I mean, our hearts go out to everybody in the West Coast, from Fort Myers to
Did you see
Captive
that?
Island.
Did you see the road into Sunnyvale?
Yes, it's gone. I mean, those people are stranded.
They are literally, they don't even, I don't know about now because I haven't heard the news in a couple hours, but they don't know how many people could be in trouble
Well,
or
you know-
because they can't get in with a car. They have to go by boat.
But you know what I was thinking of in terms of
And everything's
Sanibel?
down.
So Sanibel Island, for listeners, for those of you who haven't seen the news, Sanibel Island, which is not far from like the Fort Myers, Cape Coral
Yeah,
area, it's a little island right off the coast, and there's a bridge. It's not a huge bridge, but there is a significant bridge that takes you to the island, and it's the only place of ingress and egress. It's one bridge. And you know what I was thinking was, so not so much now, because now in terms of rescue and supplies, you know, there's going to be helicopters.
They'll figure it out,
and
yeah.
they'll figure out, and boats and all that. But what about in a few months from now, when everything sort of
and
is-
people quote unquote forget.
not
and go
forget,
back
but
to
when
their
things
lives.
sort of go back to normal, although
Right.
it will be years before things are back to normal in this area. But like they've cleaned up.
Yeah.
We're trying to resume our lives. How do those people go to work? Because building a bridge is not something that they do overnight.
That's true. Well, yeah.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking of. That's what I was
No,
thinking
you're
of.
right.
Porque aquí, even I remember in Hurricane Andrew, like a month later, not everything was back to normal because there was still, but people were back to their daily life.
You could move around.
People were back to their daily life. They were back to work,
Right.
you know, and all that. Of course, there was a lot of rebuilding, right? Like there will be rebuilding here. But a bridge is not something that is built.
Yeah, it's not like a road.
month.
It's not like a road that you're like, okay, we'll just pave it.
Roads, just
and,
pave it,
and
right.
right.
A bridge is a bridge.
It's a bridge.
And
Yeah, what
how
do you
I mean, the only thing I was thinking of was like car ferries.
I mean, again, this is us speculating. You know, I'm sure many people on the island probably own boats, pero que también the boats. I mean, we've all seen the pictures.
Right.
All the boats have been thrown on
Right. It's
ground.
like, well,
so
I'm going to work. I'm hopping on the boat, you know?
yeah, I mean, I guess, but do they even still have their boat?
Yeah, I was looking at the Fort Myers Pier, and that whole downtown area surrounding the Fort Myers Pier. There is nothing left there, like nothing.
Nope.
They used as a point of reference this store that was right by the pier that had like a 2-story tower that I think was like the elevator. where the elevator
right.
was. It's the only thing that's left.
Yeah, a few months back, we went for a weekend to Fort Myers Beach. We stayed at this little place with some friends of Jose's, and in looking at the footage, I mean, it's not that we were looking at the exact place, but it's like, okay, that area was all underwater. We were like, esa casita, ya y no queda nada.
Yeah, no, because I think that yesterday or the day of the storm on Wednesday, I think that everything was flooded. So obviously you don't know until the next day or a couple of days later.
Until the surge.
Right. Yeah. But like today or yesterday on Thursday, they started having like drone footage of all these areas, and they were like war zones. Like it looked like they had been nuked.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, you know, I always think of, you know, when something like that happens, it's like you could replace a lot of things, but I always think of like pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Videotapes for those of us who are a little bit older.
Actually, Roger Borges, your cousin, reporter for Univision, posted that he interviewed a lady who she lost everything, and the only thing she was able to save, that she made it a point to save, was her parents' wedding album.
Yeah.
That's irreplaceable.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, those are the things that just, you know, you don't stop and think about it every day, but when there's a situation like that, or you do lose everything, it's like those are the things that cannot be replaced. Everything else can, but those mementos are you can't. So yeah, it's just this has been terrible. They say it's going to be the biggest natural disaster in U.S. history, the costliest. Yeah. There's over 100 people missing.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean,
and hopefully those missing people, it's just that the cell service is down and they haven't been able to reach out to anybody. You know what I mean? Like I'm hoping best case scenario, right? That they're just somewhere without cell service.
Yeah. So I think now would be a good time to let our listeners know that especially if you're local, this Saturday, so tomorrow, Saturday, October 1st, we are going to be at Dos Croqueta on off of Bird Road and 107th. We'll put it on Instagram as well. We're going to be at Dos Croqueta from 12 to 3. And we're going to be there collecting goods. We're all going to put this on Instagram. Canned goods, toiletries, different things
probably for babies.
Yes. We're going to be putting the whole thing on Instagram. So please check our Instagram. We're gonna be there for a few hours. That's gonna be the drop off point, and Dos Croqueta is gracious enough to
fantastic
let us
offer us this.
Let us do this because I feel that this is a situation that, you know, especially this happened an hour down the road, you know, and being not only these are fellow Floridians, but you know, we didn't get hit this time, but we've been hit before.
We know what it's like.
We know what that's like, and it's just awful. It's absolutely awful. And it's situations like that just like the most basic thing, you know.
Water.
Yeah.
Water.
Dry ice. I'll never forget during Hurricane Andrew, we drove all the way up to Fort Lauderdale or Broward, somewhere in Broward, for dry ice. We got in line, and like 4 or 5 people in front of us, they ran out.
Oh shit.
Yeah, but that was like everybody's
That's what
story,
you did. Yeah.
Well,
what were you gonna do?
That's what happened. So please check our Instagram, listeners. You know, please try to give what you can. If you have some extra things at home,
maybe you bought some stuff
in
preparation for the storm,
that you didn't use. Please, now would be the time to do this, because people really, really are in need. And again, please check our Instagram. We're going to be updating it with specifics on what is needed and, you know, what we're going to do, where we're going to take all these supplies, because people really, really need it. This was catastrophic.
And even if you're not here, there are several organizations that will take donations. You know, so you can seek those out as well. You know, just it's all out there online. Like literally today, one of the places I found a link, funny enough, to all of the organizations that are taking donations was on rollingstone.com.
On Rolling Stone.
On rollingstone.com, they had an entire list. They were talking about, you know, Hurricane Ian, and these are organizations that are helping, you know, Florida, but also helping like with Cuba and Puerto Rico. And so, you know, it's just a time for us to all come together at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, we're gonna be donating our whatever we collect to the Global Empowerment Mission. I actually donated a lot of things to them for Hurricane Maria for the Puerto Rico and the Bahamas a few years back. So I've donated to them before, but we'll put it on Instagram.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
please give what you can. Again, these are fellow Floridians, so
And human beings.
yeah.
They're human beings that need help, you know.
Yeah, so keeping it in the topic of hurricanes. So Ish and I have a mutual friend who is originally from Florida, but she lived in Milwaukee for a few years, and last year she moved back down with her husband and her kids from
whole family.
Milwaukee, and her in-laws moved
Yeah.
down a couple of weeks ago. And it was just interesting to hear because I was speaking to her and she was like, oh my God, they're freaking me out. Like
They're driving me crazy.
They're
They're like-
freaking out. They're like, why are we living here? Like, blah, blah, blah. Like she told me that they were like all freaking out. And she was sort of cool as a cucumber.
She was the calming
Yes,
center of
yes.
it all. Yeah.
Which is funny because generally she's not. But
She's not, but she had to be.
right. But again,
Yeah.
having been born and raised here,
She's the veteran.
she is. I mean, she's
Yeah.
been through this, and that's what I always try to tell people. Like, I'll never forget that some years ago, I was working in California. I was there for a month or so working, and I remember a lot of my coworkers or colleagues up there. This was in San Diego. They were like, "Oh my God, how do you live in Florida with hurricanes?" And I'm thinking like,
You have earthquakes.
how do you live in California with earthquakes? Like, you don't know what
We
they're
can
gonna
prepare.
happen. Right, we can prepare.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting that to them,
An earthquake is whatever.
an earthquake's like, yeah, whatever, you deal
just
with an
deal with it,
earthquake.
yeah.
Because their whole thing about an hurricane was that, oh my God, but the hurricane lasts hours. And I'm like, yeah, but you know it's
True.
coming.
Yeah.
Because I always think that like the scariest part of an earthquake, because you don't know when it's going to happen,
Right.
is, oh my God, where's your family? Where are your friends? Like,
Right. You're not together. What if you're outdoors? What if you're on the highway?
Yes.
What if you're right?
Right. So that's the part that like the anxiety alone would kill me. Just
Just thinking about the possibility.
So, but it's just interesting that like wherever you're from, you are sort of used to, and it's very like second nature. Like, yeah, it's Florida. We get hurricanes.
This is just our natural disaster.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, the hurricane's coming. Most of us have some level of preparedness. Whether we have shutters. I'm complete. I have shutters, I have a generator, and I have a portable AC. Okay, no, call me stuck up, call me classy, pero es que a mí el calor, especialmente el calor ese húmedo, después de un huracán, a mí, it's like me quiero tirar del techo de la casa. Like, I can't.
I'm just gonna laugh over here
Why?
because after that entire screed of like the heat, the humidity, calor. What is your ideal dream trip?
To go to India?
Ajá. ¿Y tú crees que hay aire acondicionado?
No, but it's different. No, it's different.
Because I have news for you, my friend.
I know, but you know what? Okay, but like after post hurricane, it's like you have no power, right? You can't do anything else.
That's true. You're just sitting around.
You're
right.
just sitting around. Todo está desbaratado.
Right.
You're all eating, SpaghettiOs and Chef Boyardee.
and once you've cleaned up outside, there's literally nothing to do.
Right. Entonces arriba de eso hay tremendo calor because this thing always happens in the summer or late
yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
So it's always like super hot and humid. So it's like me falta un rayo. It's like, geez. And then you know me, like my house is the tundra.
It's true. He hangs meat in here, guys.
That's only a slight exaggeration.
Well, only because you don't have the hooks.
I'm sure that if I were to leave raw meat outside, it would go bad much slower than in an average house.
It could last here at least 2 to 3 days
I think so.
before it would be dangerous to eat.
Whenever I've left any type of food outside that like I leave for work and I come back a few hours later, and they always tell you like, oh, you shouldn't leave something out
Right,
more than
right,
2
right,
hours.
right.
I'm like, yeah, no, but that doesn't apply to my house.
Yeah, that's under normal
Because
circumstances.
in my house it's like 50.
Right. And that's when you're feeling warm.
Right.
Right,
In my
yeah.
house it's like 50.
Yeah. Lord.
I'll never forget when I had the Nest installed, because I have one of those Nest apps thing, and the guy who installed it for me last year or whenever, he was like, oh, you could set it to like a regular temperature, like I tell everybody to set it at 72, and I'm like, 72?
At 72, I'm freezing in my house.
At 72, I'm like, no, Babo. You're gonna need to lower that like 20 degrees.
I'm gonna need you to put Arctic settings in there.
Yes. Yeah. Is there a setting with like little ice? Because that is what I want. So imagínate, no.
In a hurricane, it's not gonna work.
Yeah,
no, it's not gonna work for you.
It's not. And then the shutters are on the windows, so that
that's the biggest pain in the ass, because then you está encerrado, like no light, no ventilation. You're just trapped.
That's why I remember a few years ago I saw a portable AC on sale, and I'm like, I'm gonna buy that portable.
What's
AC.
the worst that could happen?
Right. So I mean, I just think it's something of being a Floridian that you just you know, and you. I mean, this Hurricane Ian obviously ended up being catastrophic, but you also know that there's so many of them that either don't come or they do come, and they're más rato, but there's nothing catastrophic that happens. I mean, look. We got hit by Hurricane
was it Irma?
Irma in 2017. I actually was looking at the pictures today, and I don't know if I ever showed you pictures of my neighborhood. This neighborhood looked like it got bombed. Like there was no structural damage.
Right.
But like every tree, every
was on the
awning was gone.
Really?
Yeah. I'll show you pictures a little later. It looked like it was bombed. And I mean, again, luckily it wasn't structural. And that was like a category, I think Irma was like a category 2 or like low 3.
Maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was quote unquote nothing.
Yeah. So, you know, among the many things I'm not looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're probably going to raise insurance even more.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there was somebody else who just left or tried to leave the state like literally a week before this hit.
Yeah. That type of stuff really bothers me because
that should just not be allowed. I'm sorry.
What?
Like, that's why we buy insurance.
We spend so much time.
That's why we get insurance.
We spend so much time, and yeah, it's going to turn political. We spent so much time earlier this year and last year fighting cultural issue stuff that didn't even exist, right? About what our kids are reading in school, which they're not reading.
Let's pay attention to this.
What our kids are being taught in school, which they're not being taught. We spend so much time on cultural issues, and nobody in Tallahassee
raised the flag.
was talking about what they needed to talk about, which was insurance rates, because insurance rates are going up the roof. Like
for those that are still here.
Yes. Oye, I mean, I've said it, and I am sure this applies to many of you listeners. Last year, like many people, I refinanced my house, and I got an incredible rate. I went down to a 2.3. I'm like, I am never touching that rate. Ever.
It's a 700-year mortgage, but you're never touching it.
I don't care. It could be a millennia. I am not touching my 2.3 rate, right? Okay, that's once in a lifetime.
That's yes.
Yes. And oye, lo que me ahorré in the interest rate. 4 months later, when my insurance renewed, it went up. Yeah. It's like, okay, like I'm paying the same thing now that I was prior to the interest rate.
Yeah.
You know, and I think about if I wouldn't have lowered my interest rate, then my mortgage would have skyrocketed, in terms of my monthly payment.
Yeah.
And that's something that everybody is dealing with, right?
So where's the concern about that?
Right. Where is that concern? Because that is something that affects your everyday life.
That affects everybody.
It affects everybody. It affects everybody. And you're talking about your mortgage, because for most people, your insurance payment is tied into your mortgage.
Yeah.
Your mortgage payment.
Mine is.
So you're talking about the affordability, the monthly affordability of a family.
And even if you don't have a mortgage, that affects your rent, because guess what? Your rent is paying for the mortgage. Of that unit.
So where was that outrage?
Yeah.
So I hope
that this becomes a sticking point.
Yeah, that this really becomes a sticking point, and people, our lawmakers in Tallahassee, I don't care what party they're from or what ideology they're from.
Yeah, because insurance doesn't give a shit about
really start doing what they need for people that live here, because insurance, right, for a place that's so prone to natural disasters, you know that insurance is going to be an issue. Right. So you need to pass legislation
that controls that.
Yeah. And guarantees that, right? And Citizens Insurance Group, which is Florida, it's Florida funded. It's part of the state of Florida. It's an insurance of last resort. Citizens Insurance Company, which is the insurance company many people have. I have it now. It's an insurance of last resort, and it was not designed to be the insurance for everybody.
Right.
It was if nobody else insured you, or if like insurances keep dropping you, you know.
Right.
And it's just
it's become the primary insurance now.
I you know, I don't know if I shared it in the podcast. I'm sure I did. You know, in 2020, right when COVID was happening, I had a huge issue in my house with mold.
Oh, that's right, mold.
A huge issue, right? It's like, coño, I pay my insurance. I pay a lot of it. You know, my house had a serious mold issue.
And now I need the help that I'm paying for.
The whole first floor had had to be rebuilt. You give me shit to pay me.
This house looked like the end of E.T.
Yes, that's what it looked like. You give me shit to pay me. You nickel and dime me with my adjusters. And then after you pay me, you drop me.
Mind you, with money that you paid them.
Yes.
So that you could then, when something happens, pull money.
Yes, exactly. So insurance people, get on it.
So I actually just wanted to bring up something that I noticed as I was watching all of the news coverage with South Florida, you know, with the hurricane here in South Florida. Regardless of whether it was national or local, I noticed that all of the newscasters were saying Punta Gorda.
Oh, even Tom Llamas?
Even Lynn Martinez. Like, I mean, even like WSVN, because I was watching WSVN like the entire day.
WSVN wasn't saying Punta Gorda.
No, nobody there said Punta. Everybody was saying Punta Gorda. And I was like, okay, if you're like, you know, national,
Punta Gorda.
And I was like, I'm like, okay, look, I understand that if it's like NBC National, you know, but when we've got Tom Llamas saying Punta Gorda, I'm a little perturbed. And all I could think of was like, is it because it's live TV and they're afraid that somebody's going to mess up and say puta gorda? Because they made it very specific. Like they very purposely were all saying
so
it like
several reporters.
Several reporters across several newscasts throughout the day.
Right.
Were Punta.
It's not like Hoda Kotb on the Today Show is like, Punta Gorda. Like,
right.
I don't expect her to be like Punta Gorda.
Exactly. And even, it was funny because, okay, fine, maybe you don't want to say Punta Gorda, but they didn't even say like, you know, Punta Gorda. No, it was Punta Gorda. I'm like, why are y'all saying Punta? Why? What about that word says to you Punta? I had to bring it up, guys. Sorry.
It's funny because I was watching earlier today in my parents' house. My father was watching Spanish television from Spain, and Antena 3, and they were talking about the hurricane, and they're like, sí, porque batió las playas y la costa de Napoli, and I'm like, Napoli,
no,
and Naples, Florida,
not the same thing.
Not the same thing.
Not the same thing.
Not the same thing.
I mean, I know that the storm was big, but it wasn't that big. No llegó a Napoli.
Yeah, Napoli. But you know what though? Is that the translation though?
I mean, I get. Well, but I don't know because I don't know I don't know how you say Naples in Spanish. Napoli is in Italian.
Right.
No, I'm just saying I don't know if.
Well, this was in Spanish television.
Right, but I don't know if because they were Spain,
but I'm gonna
they
go
were
ahead
using
and
the
assume
Italian.
that if they were saying Napoli, they say Napoli's Italia. Right?
And so they say Roma and
right, they say Napoli Italia. Right? But if they say Napoli Italia, Naples Italy is spelled the same as Naples Florida.
Right. Yeah.
So with that logic,
it is correct.
Yes,
on paper it's correct.
I was like, Napoli. I was like, where's Napoli? Like, what Napoli are you talking about?
Será la mismo Napoli que yo conozco.
It's like, what Napoli are you talking about? You know, I feel that like these more catastrophic hurricanes, it's always like at the end of hurricane season, it's like, guess what? We're not going out without a bang.
Yep.
And it's like, oh,
damn it.
Just when we thought we were out of like the woods.
But you know what? I prefer that to being at the beginning, because if it's at the beginning, you might get another one.
That is true.
Somewhere down the line, and we're double dipping, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah, that is true. It's funny because you know the whole thing with hurricane, the scheme of the names.
Yes.
You know that started, I think, in like the 60s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was
fairly
either the
recent.
50s or the 60s, and it's true because before you always hear of like the Labor Day hurricane.
Oh, the storm of 1900 or whatever.
Ciclón de 26.
Right.
I know of el ciclón de 26 of my grandmother. Porque mi mamá would always be talking, el año que yo nací, hubo tremendo ciclón en Cuba. But if you look at Miami history,
it talks about
the hurricane
storm
of 26 destroyed Miami.
Yeah. We saw it at the History Museum.
Yes, destroyed Miami. El ciclón de 26. And then there was a ciclón Flora. Even I know Flora. Que le hizo un número 8 a Cuba.
I feel like Flora is the first one people talk about.
Yeah.
like generally speaking.
Yeah, yeah. And then, you know, when there's a catastrophic hurricane, that name is retired.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're not getting hit by Andrew
Ever
2.
again. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. There's no
There's
sequel.
not going to be a Katrina 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They caused enough havoc.
That's true. We don't need to bring back the memories.
Tristan was asking me about that today. He's like, oh, so like there could be a hurricane with my name, and I'm like, oh my god.
There has been.
Right, but was it a catastrophic hurricane?
Depends who you ask.
Yeah, because I'd be like, eso es lo último que a nosotros nos faltaba. Que a nosotros venga un
huracán Tristan.
I mean, I deal with Hurricane Tristan almost on a daily basis, but you know.
But is it a category 4 or 5?
No, I think
depends on the day.
I think sometimes it's
it's a measurable
monsoon mixed with a typhoon mixed with a.
Oh no, it's like that tsunami that
with a tsunami mixed with like a blizzard. You know.
Let me tell you, that was a big concern as I was watching all of this coverage. That like Tampa Bay. Did you see Tampa Bay?
That it
was empty.
It was empty. Yeah.
It was empty, and it's like, okay, yeah, but that water has to come back.
Yes.
And when it comes back, how big of a like that wall of water? I mean, 15 feet. I don't know.
Some scary shit.
That's terrifying.
I always used to say, kind of, you know, it's not a laughing matter. When I lived downtown and I was on the 48th floor, I'd be like, well, at least a tsunami won't get us up here. You know,
that's true.
It might be like a deep impact situation, but at that point in time, the whole world is going to hell.
Yeah, so you got bigger problems.
Yeah, so, you know.
Hey, speaking of deep impact, not to change the topic, but did you see about the thing that NASA sent to beat up the asteroid?
Yes.
How we're living in the age of Armageddon, kids.
That is incredible. If you think about that,
like we now have a defense against asteroids.
We do that, you know, because I feel that that's always been one of these things that like you've heard about, and it's been science fiction, but then it happened.
Yeah, I'm like, are you kidding me with this? Like,
yeah, well, you know, and it's also, you know, people going to hurricanes. People always say like, oh, can you drop a bomb in a hurricane?
Oh yeah, I've heard like to try to like diffuse it or something.
Yeah, but the problem is, I think that technically you can,
but you have to get it
but
in there.
the problem is that if being my meteorology experience, but from what I've read is that there could be something that destroys the pattern of the hurricane, but the pressure is still there.
So it's got to go somewhere.
It's got to go somewhere, and it's going to reform, and it'll probably reform 10 times more.
It'll be like 7 hurricanes instead of 1. Right. Yeah.
It'll be like the whole list of names into one. Maria Teresa y Danilo Hurricane.
Oh my. Okay. I would love that in a weird way.
Maria Teresa.
But it would never happen because they're too far apart on the.
Yeah. But yes, because hurricanes really are pressure.
Yeah. It's a pressure front. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? People talk about. You know, welcome to Pero. Let me tell you the hurricane edition.
The hurricane edition.
People talk about gutsy jobs and dangerous jobs. Can we talk for a minute about these people that fly into the eye of the hurricane?
It's like
crazy
people.
It's like, what life insurance do they have? Because I'm going to assume that
they're paying a premium.
Their life insurance has a waiver that says we will not cover you when you fly into the center of a hurricane.
Everything else you're covered.
Yes,
that's the line.
That's exempt.
That's. You want to talk about a premium coverage?
Yes, yes. That's an assumption of the risk.
I think that's the definition of assumption of risk.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to say those people, like even just the reporters who are out there, you know, covering it, like.
So I feel that
I don't know that I would ever.
So I feel
want
that
to.
So you know, for those of you who don't know, ladies and gentlemen, my cousin is the incomparable Roger Borges, who is a reporter. He's worked for NBC, CBS, Univision, and he's currently with Telemundo.
He's with Univision and Primer Impacto.
Univision, I'm sorry. He's been with with all of them at one point or another. And yeah, he's with Univision now. And I always kind of joke with him because Roger for many years now has done more like either entertainment reporting or like special reporting,
lifestyle
or stuff like that, or like special reporting. Like they'll give him a series of special reports. But the moment there's a hurricane,
it's all hands on deck.
They send Roger off to the hurricane. And I always sort of, take it in jest because, Roger is not tall. And I'm like, I always tell him, si viene un viento, una ráfaga, se va Roger con huracán y todo. And I remember
I'm sure he's going to love that we're saying this about him.
7 years ago, there was and this is something that in this hurricane, they have really criticized.
Yeah.
I remember 7 years ago, I think it was Hurricane Charles. It was sometime in the 2000s.
Charlie.
Or
It was Charlie, the one that basically hit the same area.
Yeah. I remember that Roger was there and he was reporting live. And then, he would come on live like every 30 minutes or whatever. And I remember that in the back, there was like a hangar of sorts. Right,
like a plane hangar,
like a plane hangar, like a big warehouse,
okay.
Like
Not like a pechero.
No pechero. No, people, no había un pechero. No estaban volando los pecheros.
It was Joan Crawford's worst nightmare.
That would hurt. Flying hangars. If they're wooden hangars, if it's like the
plastic ones,
the skinny hangars, you're good.
Yeah.
The space savers. But anyway, there was like this huge hangar behind him. And every time he would go live, I'm like, there's pieces of hanger flying away. Like
there would be like less. There would be like less.
As he would report live, I'm like, the building is disintegrating. In the next shot, in the next live shot, it's like, okay, like the roof is not in there anymore. And the next live shot, it's like, the east wall. I'm like, I think Roger should move.
Yeah, it's time to go indoors.
Right, but I say that as a story because there's been a lot of footage now of like. I think that one reporter that was grabbing onto a stop sign.
But the one that almost got hit with like a flying tree.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a decision of the channel, the producer, or the reporter. But I don't think anybody's out there looking for hurricane porn. Like you being blown away by the hurricane does not. I'm not really looking for that.
Right.
So
I don't know if it's the channel per se. I think it's a combination of the producer and the reporter, and a lot of times the reporter is also the producer.
Right.
So they probably are also thinking in terms of like, this is going to be the money shot. This is going to be that great thing that then I can submit for, the local Emmy or you know what I mean? Like
a Pulitzer.
Right. You never know. I'm not saying everybody, but I do think that that's it's get the story. And so they put their lives at risk, and not just with the hurricane. With a lot of things. Even covering freaking Ukraine and, a lot of times they're literally there and it's like, so that was a bullet that just whizzed by my head, as I'm covering this story.
Right. It's terrible. So listeners, again, please, especially if you're local, please meet us this Saturday. So tomorrow, October 1st at Dos Croqueta by Bird Road and 107th. And we're going to be
from 12 to 3, right?
We're going to be collecting supplies and goods there.
And come on, guys. We're better to go drop off supplies than at Dos Croquetas. You can drop off supplies and then you can get some croquetas and one of their lit slushies or a milkshake. They always have a special going on, so it's a win-win-win.
Yes. You do good.
Right. Then you reward yourself.
You hang out with us. You say hi to us.
Yeah. I'm not seeing a downside here. I'm a little biased, but I'm not seeing a downside.
So I actually want to shift to another topic that is non-hurricane related.
Okay.
And it was going to be something that I wanted to talk about.
Right.
So this week, and this goes, with what we've talked about several times on the show of just how Twitter's such a vile and terrible place, and just how
the cesspool of social media.
Oh, just. So earlier this week, Lizzo was given the honor, I guess, of playing.
Oh, yes.
It was a
crystal flute.
Flute that belonged, I believe, it was to James Madison.
It was one of the founding fathers for sure.
To James Madison.
That sounds right.
Yes. And the flute was over 200 years old. The flute is being held by the Library of Congress, right? And they gave it to her to play
at her concert, right?
At her concert.
Yeah, not like they gave it to her. She's not like taking it on the road,
right? And now new footage has come out that I think a day before, or a couple of days before, she had gone to like the National Archives and the Library of Congress, and they had given her an array of instruments for her to play. I guess this was like the peak one. This flute.
Okay.
So they report it that Lizzo, this flute was being played.
Historical instrument.
Flute was being played. Y pa' que fue aquello, you know.
How can people have a problem with this?
And you know, I've
What
said
is the
this,
problem?
I've said this about Lizzo. I think that even if you don't care for her music, Lizzo's such a positive.
Yeah.
It's like this positivity coming
She's
out
a
of her.
human embodiment of positivity.
Right? A positivity that it's like, you know, even if she's not your cup of tea, like, how can you, like, hate on that?
Right.
Like, outwardly, go out of your way to hate on that.
She's made it her mission to spread happiness.
Y pa' que fue aquello.
What was
Twitter
what was the
on
problem?
fire. Oh, that this was, you know, disrespectful, and that this was a marketing ploy, and this was a PR stunt.
How was it disrespectful?
That it was a PR stunt. That why, you know, why
Of
should
course it's a
she
PR
play
stunt.
why would she be? Why should she play this flute? And it's like, well, because she's a classically trained.
Name me one other pop star who's a classically trained flautist.
Yeah.
If Madonna had wanted to play the flute, I'd be like, no, that's a PR stunt.
Right. So, well, you know what? Yes, I'm sure there's a certain PR element to it, but again, to what you said, how many people that are up, you know,
At that level,
and especially are, you know, Lizzo right now is at the peak of her popularity. You know, it's like
she's Emmy winning, she's Grammy winning.
Are a classically trained.
She's not like a little amateur.
Right. And not everybody plays the flute,
right?
But she does, and that's sort of her shtick, right?
That look at me, I'm twerking, but I play the flute,
right?
You know,
so if anybody, they're going to give them to play the flute.
It's her.
It's her. So it wasn't something that seemed so like out of the question, right? And just people on Twitter trying to tear her down and criticizing her and calling her all types of names,
but again,
making it personal.
But I'm trying to wrap my head around what is what is the issue here? Because I guarantee you, most of these people didn't even know that damn flute existed before Lizzo played it. I didn't know it existed.
What the issue is
that she's black.
That she's black. That she's all about inclusivity. You know that you know they see it as like woke. You know, oh, she's so woke, you know, all this stuff. And it's people that have a problem with that because I don't have to tell you who are the people who are criticizing it. Right?
Fair enough.
Let's not make it political. I think we could figure out.
Right,
so,
right.
que casualidad that the people that are criticizing her are all people that tend to be on one side of things, right?
They probably wouldn't have a problem if it was Jethro Tull.
Right, or Kid Rock.
Well, Kid Rock doesn't play any instruments. That would be the epitome.
Right, no, but they love Kid Rock.
That
they
would
love
be the epitome.
Kid Rock and Ted Nugent.
Right.
Right? And
neither of who plays the flute.
I was reading something the other day because somebody was saying, actually, in the Twitter comments that I read about this, somebody mentioned Kid Rock, and I'm like, listen, I know Kid Rock had his moments
right.
in the early 2000s,
right.
But nobody's talking about what a musical genius Kid Rock is.
Yeah.
You know that I could sit here and very proudly say I never liked Kid Rock. You remember. I never liked a single song of his. It siempre me cayó como una patada.
I mean, I like the song that he does with Sheryl Crow.
No, I don't like any. I didn't like any of his songs. I didn't like him. It no me caía bien. But it's like, why? If you don't think she should have played the flute, then go right along with your day. Like,
yeah, it doesn't affect you.
This is what I don't understand. Why do people have to take? And I know we say this all over again. Why do people have to take such proactive steps to be nasty?
I again goes back to what we said. The best thing about the internet and the worst thing about the internet, right? Gave everybody a voice. Nobody cares what you think. Like, and I say that as one half of a podcast that literally every week tells people what we think, but nobody cares.
Right, but we're not going out of our way to be critical.
Right, but what I mean is, like, at the end of the day, like, we have all these avenues, podcasts, social media, Twitter, TikTok, whatever, YouTube, where we all are kind of going out of our way to make sure that our opinions are heard. And it's like, after all is said and done, do we really think anybody cares? Because even you and I mean, you know, we share our opinions here and we don't try to be nasty and things like that. People listen to us and people like our show, and that's great. But I also don't think that what I'm putting out into the world as far as this show is something that should be preserved for generations to study and, you know, and do thesis. I don't think I'm that important.
I don't think that.
I just don't.
I don't think that. And this is a difference between having like a show like ours and whatever, because at the end of the day we are giving our opinions about it, but I don't think that on the most part we are speaking on behalf of people or on behalf of groups of people. And I think that one of the things you often see on comments on Twitter is like, oh, nobody I know does that, or like, oh, don't
who likes this?
Who likes this?
Right.
Who? And it's like you're making very, very broad assumptions. Like I don't appreciate. I was reading something today because the mayor Daniela Levin Cava like sent this whole message about support to Cuba and whatever, and of course there was a political know-it-all who was like, oh, you're a communist, blah blah blah, we don't need your sympathy nor any the Cuban community doesn't need your sympathy or fake care. And I'm like, speak for yourself. Like,
actually, you know what, it is a country that needs help, so let's help.
It's like, speak for yourself. Like that's why I say, like, people that think that they speak
a representative
on behalf of groups of people, it's like, no, you don't.
Right.
And that's why I don't understand why especially big media companies rely so much on like Twitter comments.
Yeah.
Because so many times now I read articles on like NBC.com.
Yeah, it gives you the article and then Twitter comments.
And then it's like, oh, Twitter comment, Twitter user blah 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 said this. It's like, okay,
who cares?
So they're now sources. Are these sources from Us Weekly that we would always be like, oh, an unnamed source, and we'd be like, who's the unnamed source?
Well, at least now they have names.
Yeah.
Or at least Twitter handles.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
So, speaking of a little bit of celebrity news, ¿viste quién es who's in hot water? Celebrity.
Who?
Shakira.
Oh, yes.
In Spain.
Yes, she could be facing up to 8 years in jail.
For tax evasion.
Yes. Her hips may not lie, but her taxes probably did.
Yeah. I'm like,
allegedly.
I'm like, Shakira, but it's like Shakira in jail. Imagine having her as an inmate. That'd be fun.
That could be fun.
Yeah, because Shakira seems down.
Yeah, and you'd be fit because she'd be like, now we belly dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Spain is not.
They're not backing down.
No. Oh yeah, they stuck one of their national treasures in jail. Okay, Isabel Pantoja.
Oh, they did?
Isabel Pantoja was in jail for like 2 or 3 years for tax evasion.
Man.
And she's like the most iconic Spanish singer.
You thought the U.S. took taxes seriously.
Yeah. Oh my God,
I mean, we only put Wesley Snipes in jail.
My parents and like my aunt and my uncle and like everybody in my parents' generation, they freaking like...
They adore Isabel.
They like freaking got wet when they like talk about Isabel Pantoja, like, ay, La Pantoja. And they refer to her as La Pantoja.
La Pantoja?
Right, not Isabel Pantoja.
That sounds like somewhere you go for a really good creme brulee.
La Pantoja.
Yeah.
I could see it.
Yeah.
I could see it. La Pantoja, viste que La Pantoja va a cantar. And I'm like, La Pantoja viene en concierto. See, not too long ago, she's actually having a concert here in Miami soon.
Did you buy your parents tickets?
No, I bought I got the tickets for my aunt. But see, my aunt years ago, she had a concert down here. And my aunt and my uncle, this is when I was living in downtown. Mm-hmm. They even went and parked in my building and everything. For the concert.
Yeah.
And they went and they sat down and the concert was canceled.
Oh no.
So my aunt is like, ay, el sueño más grande mío es ver La Pantoja. And I'm like, oh God. Like, how dramatic.
Well, we all have to dream. We all have to dream.
Oh, but they're like, La Pantoja.
Listen, they grew up in Carlos Roja. Let them have La Pantoja.
Sort of how everybody calls him El Puma, the Puma.
That's true. We do like to put the participles in front of names.
I've always called him José Luis Rodríguez.
Oh, no, I always called him El Puma.
You call him El Puma?
Yeah.
The Puma?
I sometimes forget his actual name.
When I was a kid, I used to call him El Puma. Because I thought it was El Puma.
Oh, look, it's foam.
It's foam. Let me tell you something. José Luis Rodríguez El Puma. There's some jams right there.
There are. He's a classical icon of, as I like to call it, Peluquería Rock.
No. He is like, he's like up there. I would say top 3 in Peluquería Rock.
Peluquería Rock is like him, Pandora, Ana Gabriel, ¿quién más? Pimpinela. Ay, el otro, el Buki.
De la luna. And then, of course, chévere. You know what's the biggest song about a peacock?
Listen, nowadays, we have WAP.
Yeah. But WAP has a message.
Does it?
Yeah, it does.
Maybe the peacock one does too. Maybe it's about conserving wildlife.
You think so?
I have no clue. But if anybody knows it Puma and he wants to be on our show, we can ask him.
I think that like my parents' generation, their trifecta is like El Puma.
Okay.
El Puma. Rafael.
Oh, Rafael.
Toco madera. Y
Rafael.
no vuelvo junto a ti aunque me muera. And of course, Chico, Enrique Iglesias' father, Julio Iglesias.
Is it your mom that loves Marco Antonio Solis?
El Buki. Yeah,
Buki.
my mom's like, eres muy good looking. And I'm like, really?
Oh, y si se pone un smoking?
Really? I'm like, really, Mom? This is who we're going with? Like,
Listen, it takes all types.
Un good looking, como dice my mom. Like, really?
My mom's crush was Tom Selleck.
I could see the Tom Selleck. I could see the sex appeal in Tom Selleck. But really, Marco Antonio Solis? I mean, really, let's think about it.
I mean, you know, there's something about a man who can sing.
I guess.
Listen, there are people who drop their panties, and God knows I love his music and his voice, Mark Anthony.
That is true. That is true. And they freaking melt
Right.
over Mark Anthony.
And Marco Antonio looks better than Mark Anthony.
Because with Mark Anthony, whatever you want to say about Mark Anthony, all the women he scores are like
Hot.
No, there's hot, and then there's the women that he scores. They're
Yes,
like,
yeah. It's like David Spade.
wait, who did David Spade?
David Spade was like Heather Locklear, Denise Richards. I forget.
Well, there's something we don't know.
There's something we don't know about David
Well,
Spade.
that was sort of like the Counting Crows.
Adam
Derwitz.
Derwitz? No, is that a lawyer?
No.
Well, no, from the lead singer of the Counting Crows.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was Jennifer Aniston
and Courtney Cox.
and Courtney.
He dated 2 out of the 3 friends.
Right, and there was somebody else. Didn't he date like Mandy Moore?
Maybe.
Right. That it's like, man,
I mean, there's something to the point. There's something about a guy who has a musician. You know, it makes up for a certain degree of not traditional good looks, shall we say? To not be mean about it.
you're being so.
I'm being super PC because I just mentioned like 3 people who I would love to have on the show, and I don't want. I don't want this to be like, I heard you called me hideous.
Yeah. So, wow.
You know, there's worse reasons to decline being on our show, and I don't want it to be because we call them ugly.
Exactly. So, anyway, bueno, is it soda time?
It is soda time. So, do you want to go first?
No, you could go first.
All right. So, I'm actually going to give my last soda because we're in Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm going to give my last soda to the MCU, specifically the upcoming Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever. So one of the things that they did was in this upcoming movie, they're debuting another Marvel character called Namor the Submariner. He's essentially Marvel's version of Aquaman. He's from the 40s, so he predates Aquaman, etc. But what they did was they actually cast all of the characters like Namor and all of his subjects or whatever with Latino or Mexican actors. And I thought that was really cool. You know, that was okay, great. So, you know, we're trying to create something, you know, ethnic and keeping in the tradition of, you know, the Wakanda was very African. So let's create another civilization that's very ethnic. And they decided to take it a step further. So instead of him being from the underwater city of Atlantis, again, like I educated you a couple weeks ago, Aquaman, they're actually calling it the underwater city of Talocan. And they're making it all based on like Aztec oh my god, like culture and the look and feel. I mean, even if you see pictures of him, what he's wearing, and I'm actually kind of show you a picture right now, like it's very reminiscent of, you know, Mexican ancient cultures and things like that. So I think it's great that Marvel has decided, you know, these are already fictional characters. We don't have to stick to what's always been. And if we're in for a penny, we're in for a pound. And let's just take this to its natural conclusion and say, you know what? No, this is an ancient civilization of, you know, Mesoamerican, cultures. So I just thought that was cool. And again, the fact that they revealed it during Hispanic Heritage Month, I just thought it was an interesting little tidbit. And so I'm going to give it to the MCU for expanding upon representation.
Very well done. Very well done. Hispanic Heritage Month, September 13th, running through October 15th. Right, September 15th, running through October 15th.
Yes. We ended on your birthday.
Yeah. So that's great. That's great. So I'm going to give my last soda to... I'm going to try not to throw up in my mouth when I give this last soda, because I never thought I was going to give this last soda to who I'm going to give it to.
Okay.
But here it goes. I'm going to give my last soda to Mitch McConnell.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is clearly the last episode we've ever done because he's having an aneurysm.
Yes. No, well, I'm not having an aneurysm. So
there's no other explanation.
I'm gonna explain why
You have to.
I'm giving him my last soda. Okay. I think that for me being I'm in 223 episodes, you all know I'm a very political person. I'm very politically active.
And we all know which side of the...
Yes. And I think that it's important when you are involved in politics, now more than ever, not to lose perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's very important for a democracy and for just, in terms of advancement, to give credit when credit is due, even if it's to someone that you wholeheartedly disagree with, because I disagree with everything that Mitch McConnell stands for. But I have always said that as much as I dislike Mitch McConnell, and I don't agree with anything that he stands for, I've never felt that he is somebody who... I've never felt that this country could end because of Mitch McConnell, that he's a threat to democracy.
You never felt he was like malicious?
Not even malicious. I think that he's been a son of a bitch at times, but I don't think that he's a threat to democracy.
Okay.
I think he's a threat to certain people, but not a threat to democracy.
Okay.
So
as an institution.
So earlier this week, he actually backed, and this was huge. Mm-hmm. And it didn't get as much attention as it should have gotten. But he actually backed legislation that was drafted in order to prevent a repeat of January 6th.
Oh, wow.
Because really what happened January 6th was, as we know, is that the president at that time did not want the vice president, Mike Pence, to certify the election.
Right.
So this legislation, would ensure that the vice president, if elements A, B, and C are met, the vice president has to certify the election.
Okay, so the certification becomes a formality because it's going to happen.
Exactly. The role of the vice president is a formality,
ceremonial,
not
almost
discretionary.
Okay,
right? Because Mike Pence did the right thing,
right?
But he could have chosen not to certify it and been like, to hell with this. Right. And then we would have gone into a constitutional crisis. Right. So yes, and there's more to the legislation than that. I mean, I'm just breezing through this, but I think it's very important that we recognize that one of the top Republican lawmakers, not only
he's the majority leader, right?
Well, minority now.
Minority. Well, yeah.
He was majority, minority now. He may be majority again. But he is one of the top. His most established Republican lawmakers and leaders is backing this legislation. And that is huge. Of course.
there's a whole other there's a whole other thing to it.
The screaming banshee that is Donald Trump is already screaming bloody murder and calling him all types of names and saying that he's in bed with the Democrats and blah, 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 blah. Of course he's saying all that. So if he's saying all that, it's because he's afraid of this. Right? So I think it's important to recognize when even people that are your adversaries and people that you don't agree with politically do something that you agree with. And I agree 100% with what he did, right? Mm-hmm. Because
he very easily could have not backed it.
Right, or he could have very easily been tribal, like most other people in his parties, and gone with this other man who was destroying their party, well, the country, but their party, and just stuck with him. And he hasn't. He
stuck to his guns.
He stuck to his guns, and he has several times. And I think it's very important to recognize that. So my last soda goes to Mitch McConnell. Like, I never thought I would say that.
Well, it took over 200 episodes for it to happen, so never say never.
So, but nobody could ever say that I never gave credit to a Republican
This is
win.
true. That you were not bipartisan in your soda giving.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
My bipartisan soda.
Yes. Rewarding.
So, anyway, well, that's it for this episode. Again, our thoughts, our well wishes go out to our fellow Floridians and neighbors in the Gulf Coast of Florida, Fort Myers, Naples, Sanibel, and we know what you've been through. We feel it. And again, if you're local, please join us this Saturday, tomorrow,
October 1st.
October 1st from 12 to 3 at Do Croqueta. We're going to put it on our Instagram so we can help out people in the Gulf Coast. So again, everybody, we hope you listen, laughed, and learn. And remember to grab your croqueta, your pastelito, and your cafecito. And thank you so much for joining us.
All right, mi gente, cuídense.
Bye.
Bye. Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.
Mi papá immigrated from La Belleza, que es Medellín, Colombia, to Miami, Florida, all with one goal, pa' echar pa'lante la familia. And with that same spirit, I started the Que Hola podcast. It's all about sharing the journey creatives from the 305 and beyond have traveled, the W's, the L's, pitfalls, and lessons, all with a focus on first and second generation Latinos, pero para todos los creatives. Entonces, parce, Que Hola contigo. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you stream your podcast. I'm your host, D Fig. Also, we're on YouTube. Listo.